Welcome back, and in this training we're going to show you how to do the listing documents in Webforms for a new residential listing. First thing you're going to want to do is, if you have the address in mind, we're going to use 1110 Houghton as an example. You're going to go to BC Assessment, which is the easiest way to find the full address and the property identification number. You're going to take the property identification number and you're going to order a copy of the title. The title needs to be in front of you when you're doing the listing agreements because you need to confirm the identity of the person that's going on the contract. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can either email office at Real Estate Sage, right there, we got, so office at realestatesage.ca. You can email them and ask them to pull a copy of title for you. This is something you can do at the beginning. But they will charge a small fee additional for their time that they're doing this for you compared to if you were pulling it yourself. And that also is just because it adds more workload to the office, which they shouldn't need to do. You should be setting up your own My LTSA account and pulling your own titles. We're going to look over that in a separate video, so you can find that in the training site. But right now, let's assume you've already found the property identification number. You've asked the office to pull a copy of title, and you'll need to send them this PID along with the address name so that they can pull it for you, or you've pulled the title using your My LTSA account. So at this point, let's assume we've already done that, and we are now into our title document. We can see here that the PID, the property identification number, matches what we just pulled, and we have the owner's names that are on title. Now, if it's a residential property or anything that has personal names, great. You just get the IDs and the occupations and information of the person that's on title. If it's a corporation, then you will need to pull a corporate summary and do corporate FinTrack, and we do talk about that in a separate video as well. But right now we can see it is personal names, so we can go ahead and move forward with creating the listing document. So first thing we're going to do is go back into our matrix system, and we're going to go into our Webforms account. And then once we're into our Webforms, we're going to click onto transactions, which is the little house here. And we are going to click the add button, so create a transaction. We're going to grab the address and go into our transaction kit, and we're going to put listing for the address. And I usually like to put a dash and then the names of the people that are on title, so that if I need to find this later and if I remember their names versus the address, then I can search it that way and it'll pop up. So the next very important thing we're going to do is a template. So we're going to click the templates drop down. There's a listing kit for strata, and a listing kit for land only. Very important, we're going to choose the listing kit. If we're doing a condo, we can do strata if you like there, but I'm going to choose listing kit. Source, because we're listing it, there's no source. We're not grabbing an MLS number, so you can leave that alone. And if I just leave use wizard on just because I don't know what happens if you uncheck it, you can test that out yourself, but I'm going to click now create. So once this transaction creates, it's going to bring me to the wizard. You can feel free to fill out information on here if you like. I don't like the wizard, so I just click back into the transactions, click into my transaction that I've created, and then on go to forms. You should now see a full list of transaction kit forms for a listing. You're going to need to have a multiple listing contract, a property disclosure statement. If you haven't already done your disclosure representation or privacy notice, then those are here as well. They should be there before you get to this point, but this is fine. It's right here. Your FinTrack for identification, amendment for multiple listing contract in the future if you need to, make an amendment to the listing. Disclosures of expected remuneration for when you're dealing with offers for your listing sellers, and then the cancellation form for multiple listing contracts. These are the typical standard forms that you will need for a listing. So the first thing we're going to start off with is a multiple listing contract. We're going to click on this, and then we're going to input the data. Now, this multiple listing service clearly says MLS office use only. We do not touch this, right? You leave that blank. Now, in this case, we're going to talk about the brokerage. So if you are just with Sage, then this is the Sage Executive Group Real Estate for you. If you're with Letnick Estates, it would be dash Letnick Estates. This is the main brokerage, so that's all good. Now we're going to put in the owner's information. So we're grabbing this directly off title and putting that on there. If you know where they live, then I recommend you put in their address. That way we can keep track of things a little bit easier. And we're in Kelowna, BC. And postal code. Now, if you have their phone number, I would highly recommend you put their phone number here. In this video, I will just not put it on there, but I highly recommend you put it there, because if you, for whatever reason, cannot be getting a hold of, and the office needs to get a hold of you, your client, then they need to be able to have contact information. So I would highly recommend you put it in here. Now, next thing you're going to see is the listing term. MLS requires you to have at least, I believe it's a 60-day listing. You can cancel it if you want within that period of time, but otherwise minimum is 60 days for the listing to be active on the system. So we're going to put on here the listing, and I believe this one is going live on the 30th, and we are going to have it for 3 to 6 months. So 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put it for 30. There we go. So March 30th to June 30th. Now typically we'll do a 6 month. This client has asked for 3 months. In this hot market, we'll go ahead and we'll do that. Property information. So this is going to be, again, information directly from the BC assessment. We're going to put the address in there. This is Kelowna, and then BC. Now, the postal code. You can grab the postal code from here. Keep in mind, BC assessment is not always correct. So I usually recommend, when dealing with a listing, you grab the address and you go to Canada Post postal code lookup and find a postal code. You're going to put the address into their search box. Boop. Click on it, and it's going to show you the postal code. So V1X6G8. Copy. V1X6G8. BC assessment is correct. So we can close that window and then put in the postal code here. Property identification number, we're just going to grab the PID off the title. And the legal description, we are also going to grab off the title. Now, what you're going to notice, oops, there we go, is if you grab the legal description off of BC Assessment, they have their own coding system for the land districts. So Land District 41 is a Soyuz Division Yale district. Either one is correct, but preferably use the one off title, because the lawyers like to see this versus this, but it means the same thing. So just double check as well. I usually just like to double check it, but make sure it is matching. So Plan 37468, Plan 37468, Town Section 27, Township 26, and Land District 41 is ODYD. So that is correct. We're good with that. So we're going to have the legal description in there. We're going to scroll down. The listing price. The listing price for this house is going to be the $699,900. Terms. This I usually leave blank, but terms would be, for example, cash. If the seller only wants cash, right? Now, if they're willing to trade, then you could put willing to trade for boat plus cash on balance, right? So whatever they kind of tell you if they're willing to trade, but most of the time we just leave it as blank, and then they can negotiate on the terms of when the offers come in. So we've got the price there. As you can see, the address propagates here from the top address that we've put in. Now, the disclosure of remuneration. This is important. This is the standard that we have from the template. Us personally, we change this to 3.5. We copy that. We scroll a little bit down, and we replace that on the final line. And so this is if there's no cooperating brokerage. This is the total commission that is paid on the sale, and this just means that there's no other brokerage. This may still be an agent within our brokerage that brings a buyer, and so this is the full commission. That's just how it works. This is the total commission that would be upon sale. This is if there's a cooperating brokerage. So if there's a cooperating brokerage, then they get paid 3.5 for the first 100,000 and 1.5 for the remainder. Now you can negotiate these commissions with your seller if they want to, but these are what we have and usually recommend. Now for the listing portion, we change this to 2. Because we have a lot more costs on the listing side. We've got photography, we've got city files, we've got marketing. There's a lot of different costs that are associated with it. So us personally, we charge a little bit more. And this also gives us a little bit more leeway if we are negotiating with the seller later on to make a deal come together. And so in this situation, we are going to be doing a discount. So I'm going to be putting this in brackets, 25% discount on fees at completion for listing agent portion and bracket. Write it however you want, as long as it makes sense, and displays that we're giving a 25% discount on these fees for the listing agent portion, not on the buyer's agent portion. And that's what we do. Now, we don't put this discount down here just because we have already made it clear that the discount is on the listing agent portion. This specifically may have a buyer's agent. We don't know that, so we're just not going to put the discount amount on there, just to keep things clear. Now, designating an agency, this is also important. If you are part of a team, every agent's name in your team has to show up here. So by default, Joanna and I are a team because we are a married couple and both licensed in a real estate brokerage. So we are a team. Now, we have an agency as well, the Atlantic Estates Group. All those agents are not part of our team. They are separate agents, so they do not need to be listed here. Before we had our boutique brokerage, some of those agents were part of our team, and they all had to be listed here. So just keep that in mind. And we scroll down. Continuing to scroll. Now, this, if you're sending it up through DocuSign, you can just put a date stamp on there if you like. If you know they're going to sign it today, then you can click the calendar, click today, there's the date. If you think they're going to sign it tomorrow, then put that in there. If you want to just save yourself the headache, just put the date stamp on there for whoever's signing, and then that way it's just, you know for sure it's been signed that time when they're signing it. Now, here we have the seller's signatures. Typically, it's nice to put their names on the document, so we're going to grab their name and paste it in there so that they know where they're signing. And then you're the designated agent. If you're the primary, only the primary needs to sign the document. And so I have my name here, and the brokerage name is there. Now, if we scroll down below, you're going to see a whole bunch of information. This is one of the reasons why you want to use the template, because you now have all of this here. You need to have this lockbox waiver information on here in order to properly have permission to set up a lockbox on the property and waive liability in case something happens to that lockbox, like it might get stolen, for example. Not common, but it does happen. This here is a way to show to the seller that you are committed to helping them sell their property, and these are some of the things you promised to do. If you don't fulfill all of these services, then the seller doesn't feel that you are fulfilling those services, and this is a way basically they can kind of get out of their contract, but it also is a way to hold yourself up to a higher standard by making sure that you follow through with these promises. Now, what you will do is you will download this document once you're all finished by going to File, Save as PDF. And then the next thing we're going to do is look at the property disclosure statement. Now that we have saved the document to our computer, we are now going to move on to the property disclosure statement. This document here, if it is not their principal residence, what we usually recommend in that case is put the date of the disclosure, so click the calendar and select the date, make sure the address is in there. But when you have this, then you can select if it's a water provider, if you know that it is municipal water, or if it is the sewer system. But otherwise, for the most part, you're not going to be filling anything out if it's not their primary residence. And at the bottom here, we would say, and you can do it in capitals or however you want to, but we would say seller has never lived in the property. If it was tenanted, you can say property has been used as a rental, period. And then I like putting buyer is responsible for their own due diligence. And then what I'll do is when I put it into DocuSign, there's a cross-out feature, and I will just basically go through on DocuSign, and I will get a red cross-out line across the whole document on all the wording, have the seller initial each page, cross out the next page as well, initial, cross out, initial, cross out this section, and then have them sign. That way, they're not disclosing anything because technically they've never lived there. They don't really know everything about the property. So that's one way to do the property disclosure statement if it's not their principal residence. If it's a rental property, is a good example. Now, in this case, they do live here, and so because of that, we should get this filled out. The way you can do this is either in person or have a conversation with your client ahead of time, and then this should not be checkmarked. This should have initials. Now, if there's multiple sellers, normally I'll just have one of the sellers initial all the boxes and have both of them initial the pages and sign. That way it indicates that they agreed to everything that was initialed. With DocuSign especially, if you haven't had that conversation with them up front, put the initial boxes on where you believe the correct information is, then have a conversation with them prior to them signing to let them know. Make sure to review all of the property disclosure statement placements And if it's not correct, or if you have any questions, please let me know, and then we can modify it. So then you can move the initial spots before they complete the document. So you're going to need to go through this and just make sure, depending on the situation, that you have it correctly filled out, whether you're crossing it out or it's properly initialed for each of those questions. Now, all the grayed out boxes, that is basically means do not fill that out. It has to be a yes or a no for this one. If you do not know, then it is really, you should not be filling out that box. It is grayed out. So are you aware? It's a very clear answer. Are you aware? If they're not aware, it's a no. It's not do not know. It's are you aware? If it's a yes, then it's a yes, right? So it's a yes or no question. So just keep that in mind, that this, for example, you don't need to cross to mark in. It's grayed out for a specific reason. And then once you've done that, you would go to File, Save as PDF, and click. It's going to download to the computer. And that is essentially it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this documents that just downloaded onto your computer and put it into DocuSign. Now if you haven't done the DORTs or the privacy yet, then this is a very good time to get it done prior to them signing off on the listing. So in this case, for example, we're going to go to our templates that we've created, disclosure, representation, and privacy. I'm going to click Use. Right there, we click Use. And then it's going to pull up my disclosure representation. So this is where you put in your client's name and email. And if there's more than just that one, then you can add them by editing. So we're going to click the Edit button. We're going to upload our documents. So we have our property disclosure statement and our multiple listing contract. We're going to open those up. And we're going to put the multiple listing contract first, just to keep things more organized. And we're going to click Next and then fill out all the forms. If you have any questions about how to do this, then feel free to reach out to me. But that is how you set up the listing documents in Webforms using a template.